So Elden Ring's been out now for over a month, meaning that at this point most of the players who actually committed to this wild ride of an open world journey have now probably completed their first playthrough of the game, which I think makes it alright to finally analyze one of the most talked about fights in the entire history of the Souls series. As you might have guessed, this video is all about Malenia, Bane of Radahn, progenitor of the Scarlet Rot, or, you know, the lady who's been whooping your ass for the last 70 tries. Now, if you're watching this video, then you've probably already either defeated her or you've acknowledged that you're actually not that good at the game and now you're here, expecting me to tell you that Malenia is in fact the hardest boss ever so that you and your fragile ego can sleep in peace tonight. And if that's the case, then well, I'm terribly sorry pal, but I've got bad news for you. It took me about 4.5 hours to kill her, and even though that seems to be a long time to be stuck at a boss, I came to the conclusion that Malenia is actually a pretty fair and well-designed boss fight. With a tiny bit of bullshit sprinkled on top. Alright, so first of all, there are two things you need to know about this boss. One, her name's Malenia. Two, she's the Blade of Miquella. Got that? Good. It's useless information, but it'll haunt your dreams nonetheless. Trust me. Now, after having thought about it for a while, I think we can split up the reasons for why people are struggling so much with this woman specifically into 3 different categories. So let's jump right into it, shall we? Elden Ring can be regarded as FromSoftware's magnum opus when it comes to video games, aka the accumulation of decades of hard work in the Souls-like genre. Now that being said, a lot of people, including me, were hyped to no end for this game in particular, and as you might know by now, it didn't disappoint. The world was vast, the bosses difficult, and player deaths were numerous. A few days after launch, however, when the player base and their experience of the game was still fresh, word started spreading of an optional boss in a secret area that almost nobody had killed yet. Seems familiar? Well, keep your PTSD in check since Malenia, the Blade of Miquella by the way, doesn't care about your feelings, nor about your previous encounters with hard bosses, as even Dark Souls veterans were getting their ass handed to them by her, and who the fuck are you to even think you could kill her if you haven't been getting a PhD in fighting analysis and Dark Souls combat over the years and— God damn it, she's killed me again. Well, that was at least the common opinion. All of the die-hard Souls fans were screaming about Malenia being the hardest fight ever and the true noob filter of all things Dark Souls, consequently creating this image of the biggest wall in the entire series, which, you know, made a lot of sense to me since Elden Ring is supposed to be FromSoft's masterpiece, right? Well, kinda. The point I'm trying to get across here is that if you played Elden Ring and you don't live under a rock, you heard of Malenia and how she's gonna kick you in the balls once you get to her. Now that kind of image is extremely important for your mental state if you're going into a boss fight. If you think the boss is going to be hard, even if he isn't, you're probably gonna struggle. I guess the equivalent to this idea would be you prematurely giving up on a math equation in high school since your teacher told you that somebody like you isn't gonna solve it anyways, and yes, I'm talking about you, Mrs. Snyder, go suck a dick. Now, having discussed this kind of expectation for an apparently unkillable boss is the setup that's going to lead us into our next segment of this fight. Let me show you what the first encounter with Malenia probably looked like for a lot of people. You arrive at the bonfire, you see the fog wall, your mind starts racing as you've probably figured out by now that this is going to be the queen of Dark Souls everyone is simping for. You enter the arena, the cinematic plays, she says this:
I am Malenia, Blade of Miquella. And I have never known defeat.
And then the fight starts.
I am Malenia.
Yeah, let me know if this seems familiar. The first time you see that introduction cinematic as well as the immediate assault by her is most likely going to send you into a fight or flight reaction, which in turn is closely connected to your sense of fear, therefore establishing the emotional relationship you're going to have with this woman for, well, most likely the rest of your day. You're going to be scared, you're gonna lose your cockiness, and you'll believe that you finally met your match here. And if this isn't going to be enough to break your spirit, then oh boy, just you wait until you get to the second phase. Yep, I just said second phase, and I don't know about you, but that completely slipped my mind the first time I was fighting her. Now, if your fighting spirit is somehow still intact after dragging yourself through the first phase, then good luck dealing with what she announces next.
You will witness true horror. Now, rot.
Maybe you're tougher than me, but I totally believed her at this point. Now, if you're thinking, come on man, you're making this out to be way worse than what it actually is, then, well, congrats! You're probably an emotionally stable human being who's been through the ringer a few times when it comes to the presentation of supposedly hard bosses. And I agree with you, Malenia is generally speaking not a hard boss, she just plays with your feelings a lot. Leading us to our final point in the video. When all's been said and done, Malenia is a surprisingly fair encounter compared to a lot of other difficult bosses in the Souls series, and not only is she fair, she's actually pretty easy to handle. Is what I would say if it wasn't for the Wombo Combo. Now, apart from her, well, filler attacks I guess we could call them, the only mechanics you really need to watch out for is the aforementioned Wombo Combo, the Zippy Zap, her grab attack, and her flower petal summoning jutsu in the second phase. Everything else is pretty much manageable if you're not suffering from arthritis or playing on a mouse and keyboard. Who the fuck does that, by the way? Come on, guys. Starting with the Zippy Zap, she basically rushes towards you, quickly slashes at you 3 times in a row, and then finishes with a long sweep of her sword. Now, the problem with this move is that if you haven't figured out how it works, she's going to hit you with it every single time. Let's assume you dodge backwards once the combo is coming. The invincibility frame of your dodge is not going to carry you through the entire attack, since she keeps coming towards you and eventually hitting you with her third swipe, making you stagger and get hit by the last sweep as well. The trick here is to dodge towards her to her right side, making every single slash miss and leaving her open for an attack once the combo ends. The issue with this is that, since we already established that most people are terrified of her at this point in time, they're going to instinctively want to roll backwards and move away from her, which is going to always end up in you losing health. The grab attack, on the other hand, is fairly straightforward. The wind-up is pretty fast, but still predictable enough to proficiently react to it. However, if it hits you, it one-shots. I fought her with basically the most armor and physical negation that you can have, and I barely survived the grab, and that's only if my health bar was full. Next in line is the flower petal summoning jutsu, which visually is one of the coolest looking attacks I've ever seen in a Souls game, but it's also one of the more stressful ones. Now, the way this attack works is that she'll fly in the air, pointing her sword towards you and unleash a number of flower petal clones that will attack you. Once the assault of the clones is stopped, she'll finish the attack off with a hard-hitting thrust. Now, the difficulty in this attack lies in its pressure. You're frantically trying to dodge the clones, which seem to appear almost out of thin air, leading you to panic roll more than you'd probably care to admit. While doing this, you'll eventually lose sight of Malenia herself, making it hard to predict her finishing thrust at the end of the combo. The only real solution you have here is either perfectly dodging the clones while locking onto the boss, or actually counting how many clones will spawn and then predict her final attack. And if you've ever been put under enough pressure in a fight, you'll know that counting attacks while panic rolling away is easier said than done. Finally, we'll move on to the Wombo Combo, and let me be honest with you guys, this is one of the most bullshit abilities I've ever encountered in my Souls game career. Even though it's aesthetically very pleasing to look at, avoiding this attack completely is near impossible. At least for the first 15 tries or so. The way the Wombo Combo works is that she'll let you know her bum rush is about to start by jumping up in the air, assuming an anime-looking stance every weep would be jealous of, and finally unleashing a 360-degree slicing attack while rushing towards you. Now listen, if you're a speedrunner, you might have found a way to reliably dodge this attack by frame perfectly rolling into certain directions. Me, on the other hand, after 4.5 hours of trial and error, came to the conclusion that baiting her to do the attack and then running away like a bitch was going to be the only way to actually survive this combo without losing 80% of my health to it. I don't know the trick to this attack, if there even is one. Never figured it out, and even on my last attempt whenever I actually killed her, I was lucky that she only did it once during her second phase while I was already a good distance away from her. This combo is bullshit. It's hard to fathom, extremely punishing whenever she catches up to you, and if there is a way to properly dodge the attack, you better believe me that it's unreasonably hard to figure out. Now, all of these mechanics don't actually include the regular mess-ups you're going to experience with her filler attacks. Once you get to your 20th try, most people will probably start losing focus, letting themselves get hit more often, which is something you cannot afford with Malenia. The reason being that every single hit you receive from her is not only going to make you lose health, she's going to recover some since she has a passive lifesteal ability during her entire fight, even during her second phase whenever she actually becomes aggressive. Alright, so now that we've established the reasons why people think she's one of the hardest bosses ever, as well as having taken a look at what makes her fighting style scary, is Malenia actually standing up to her reputation? Well, for once, it actually depends on what kind of person you are. Generally speaking, I think Malenia is one of the best designed bosses in the Souls series, which in turn makes her easy to kill if you're actually good at the game. Her whole shtick, however, is making you scared of her, consequently forcing you to overcome that fear and actually playing aggressive as well, which is something a lot of people have difficulties with, hence her reputation of being the hardest boss of the Souls series. If you play like a sissy during this fight, she'll just whittle you down slowly but steadily while recovering life herself, making the fight take a lot longer and therefore giving her more time to smear her scarlet rot all over you. In a way, Malenia makes you man up. She makes you discard your cowardness and embrace your Giga Chat gamer attitude, which is something very few bosses actually do nowadays, even in the Souls franchise. On the other hand, however, you have the Wombo Combo, a pretty unfair move that is going to one-shot you almost every time she does it, as well as her healing with every single hit, just feels like artificial difficulty and is just downright discouraging and frustrating in my humble opinion. Apart from that though, Malenia is fair. She's a fun encounter to learn and most important of all, a worthy contender in terms of waifu material. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you found this one entertaining, and if you did, please consider leaving a like and a sub for more unprofessional opinions no one cares about. Cheers!